James Blundell, and welcome to my fortnightly podcast, Down on the Farm. Click on the red button to subscribe. Well, directly descended from Slim Dusty and Joy McKean's travelling shows by Buddy Holly, Hilbert Music, Hank Williams, the Carter Family, Jimmy Rogers, and with a deep and abiding love for Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, John Prine, a singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and award-winning musician in his own right, Bill Chambers has been at the epicenter of the Australian country music scene for over 30 years. Regarded as one of the most loved and respected entertainers in the industry, he's also a hero to musicians and patrons alike. Bill and his first wife, Diane, also gave us Casey Chambers, the shining light of the rise and rise of Australian women in country music, and the incredible talents, songwriting, production and musicianship of Nash Chambers. Hell of a family, hell of a man. Welcome to Down on the Farm, Bill Chambers.
I still remember the first time I met you. We were backstage at Gympie, and this was all new to us. We'd never been to Gympie. It was like awe-inspiring, and you actually come over and said g'day to us, and I thought that's pretty cool. You know, the biggest star in the show, and he comes over and says hello to these hillbillies from South Australia. So we were impressed.
Been a mutual love affair from the start, mate. Southend is a tiny little town, 320 odd k's southeast of Adelaide. There's not a lot there. So what was it like growing up there? What was the town about, and how did you enjoy childhood?
I had a great childhood, but I didn't realise how isolated we were. It was just me and my sister for years. I ended up with 6 brothers and sisters, but my sister and I were the first kids in Southend, and there was no other kids, just about 30 or 40 smelly old fishermen, and like mostly blokes living in little beach shacks. And those beach shacks were made out of driftwood they picked up off the beach. So it was a real shanty town, and but it was a great way to grow up.
So were you, like on a farm, I suppose you were part of the workforce as soon as you were physically able to. Was it net fishing or line fishing, or what was the job?
Lobster pots. It's one of the most lucrative lobster areas in Australia, maybe apart from Geraldton. That's probably the biggest lobster port in Australia, Geraldton, West Australia. But from Kingston right through to Portland, right down the bottom of Australia there, it's all very lucrative lobster grounds. And my brothers and sisters are all lobster fishermen. Or my brothers are, and my sisters are married to lobster fishermen. I'm the only travelling bum in the family. But I've seen most of the world, so I've been lucky, you know. And I've got no more money than when I started. But what the hell?
Something just occurred to me while you're talking. Obviously, being born and raised in the bush, that leads you into a whole stream of a certain type of music, because they're narrative stories. Yeah. But the ocean's very much the same. When the early stuff that you were around and started singing and started playing, I'd kill to be on a beach by a bonfire, eat fresh seafood with no one else around. What a hell of a way to go. But was there a nautical theme to the nature of the songs that you were singing, or was it pretty general?
I guess I didn't think about it when I was younger, because as a kid, you take it all for granted. There's my dog saying hello.
I love it. I've got my two running around under my feet.
He wants to be in the video. That's
beautiful fella. Matilda. Beautiful dog. I love it.
Yeah, as I was growing up, I was listening to a bit of everything, and I wasn't writing many songs in those days. I didn't take songwriting serious until I got older, and I was a bit of everything. But I loved songs about the ocean, but I also loved songs about the land. I listened to a lot of Slim Dusty, Tex Morton, Buddy Williams, and of course later on I listened to John Williamson and yourself and other people writing songs about Australia. And finally I wrote a song for Slim about the land, which sort of got us into Tamworth and won me a gold guitar for Song of the Year. So I didn't even know what I was getting into. I got a call from the BAL Marketing were running the gold guitars. Then they called me and they said, "You've been nominated for a gold guitar." And I said, "What's that?" I didn't even know what it was. Because we were living in South Australia, you know, we were in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't know what the gold guitars were all about, of course. And it wasn't until they told me that Keith Urban and Graham Connors and people like that were involved in the gold guitars, you know, in the same category. I thought, oh wow, it must be fairly serious.
You've done something very right or very wrong. It took a while to figure it out.
It's a learning. The whole music game's a learning curve, isn't it? You just every day we learn something, and you never feel like you've reached the peak. You always feel like, I think I've learned something new today. And I do a lot of studio stuff these days, and that's the same. You know, you're learning stuff every day. And songwriting. Sometimes I meet young songwriters that have hardly ever written a song, and you'll learn something from them because they come up with things. You think, where did that come from? That's what inspiration's all about, I think.
Couldn't agree with you more. But the other name that came up in your list of people that you like was Buddy Holly, because he was nearly the most sophisticated end of pop music at that stage of the game. Definitely an innovator, but about as far from, you know, the beaches of South Australia or the middle of Australia on the Nullabor, which you inhabited, that you could get. So was it just the music? Was it the melody? Was it the image? You know, was it just what he was that got you?
That when I heard Buddy Holly sing "That'll Be the Day," it's like, holy hell, what is that? Those early days of rock and roll. I was born in 1950, so I grew up in the 50s, and to hear early Elvis Presley sing Jailhouse Rock and That's All Right, Mama, and Buddy Holly singing That'll Be the Day and Rave On, all that stuff, it was like a bolt of lightning. And I heard all that before the Beatles and the Stones, and it was such an exciting time to be around. All I had was the radio for a start, and vinyl records. And Mum and Dad would be playing these songs late at night while I was in bed on a school night. They thought I was asleep. I was listening. And anything from Hank Williams to Jimmy Rogers to Buddy Holly. And then a couple of years ago, my daughter Casey got me listening to Eminem. So I've had a good cross section of everything. I mean,
fantastic writer.
Yeah, he is a great writer, and I don't always agree with his political beliefs, but to be able to put words together like that is pretty amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
You know, just touched on a lot of things over a lot of conversation over a lot of years. One of the other things I find fascinating about your life, given that it was such an earth-oriented or nature-oriented background, you actually had quite a strict religious upbringing, which the first time I heard that about you, I thought, Christ, it doesn't show.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem to anymore. No, I was brought up in a Seventh-day Adventist family, and so we had a very strict upbringing. There were certain foods we couldn't eat. They go to church on Saturday, and it's a very sacred day for Adventists, very Jewish. And we weren't allowed to eat lobster, even though we caught lobster. We weren't allowed to eat it.
Oh, that's a crime.
Yeah, that is a crime. And as I got older, of course, I drifted away from that. But I still hold Christian values, you know, and I have spiritual beliefs. I'm not totally. I haven't got all the answers there, that's for sure. But I believe in something. I'm not sure what it is.
That last comment, only a wise man could make. I haven't got all the answers. I think the moment you think you do, you're in all sorts of peril. But again, it goes back. You know, a lot of people are familiar with the part of your story that was on the Nullabor, a professional hunter. That's an incredible part of life. I've been fortunate to do a similar thing growing up. We made good money out of shooting, but you can't live in those environments without having a sense of being part of a very, very intricate puzzle. You know, there's
absolutely.
And what you've just said resonates so strongly. I definitely believe in some I've had enough near-death experience to know that you're given another round for a reason, and it's the minute you take it for granted, I think you're really missing the point. And that's what I love about your music. You are capable of coming up with something you didn't expect from you at all, from one song to the next, but that's just an exploring mind. And is there a period of your writing that you've enjoyed most?
I just made a record with a bunch of girls, which was a lot of fun. They were called the City Girls, and it's an all-girl band, and we got it in the studio and did it all live in 2 days. And it's my favourite record at the moment.
Fantastic.
Wrote all the songs, and or most of them, and got these girls to play, and it was just so much fun. We had an upright bass player, full band, and a couple of girls singing harmony. It was so much fun, and I feel like that's probably my best work. But who knows? All of us probably get a bit tired of some of our early stuff because we've gone over it so many times. And when you're on tour, as you know, when you put out a record, you got to sing them songs for a while, because you want to sell it. And sometimes you think, oh, God, I can't wait to make a new record to get some new ones. And that's where I am at the moment. I've just made a new one. Yeah. We're going to showcase them at Tamworth soon. When
you have the privilege of playing with your children, which I enjoy, I've spent a lot of time playing with Briar and my oldest son, and then Travis, who's up in the territory of his third year on a cattle station over there, but he's just an exceptionally good musician and a great songwriter. It's a completely different headspace to working with musicians of your own generation who you've met on a professional basis. Do you find that their perspective drives you to excel, or is it something is there any sense of going, well, the kids are watching, I better do the best I can? Do you get that at all?
There's a little bit of that, but I think it's the fact that I can be myself around my kids, warts and all. Yeah. They know me better than anyone else, so I feel I can relax around them. And Casey and I are very honest with each other. If I'm doing a song that sucks, she'll tell me. Although I'm probably not game enough to tell her. but my kids have taught me a lot. I listen to them, actually. Kids can teach you a lot. Because they know us so well, and they're totally honest, I come from a very opinionated family. We always think we're right until we're proven wrong. My kids and myself, we've got a mind of our own, and we say what we think, but that's a healthy way to be, I think. Whereas sometimes you're working with musicians that you feel a bit inhibited because they might be someone you really look up to, or someone you think is a better musician than yourself. So you often feel like you can't totally relax and be yourself. Whereas around my kids, I can,
You do realise that nearly every musician in Australia would feel that if they're playing and you're around.
I hope
again, one of the many things I've loved about you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't take myself very serious.
What you do is you maintain an integrity and a reality that that's been the introduction that I love, is that we all regard you as a bit of a hero because you're just the real deal. You've never given a rat's ass about opinion. I remember very clearly the first time I saw you as a group of people, and that was the Golden Tower, and Casey was in a pair of striped pants, a hat with braids, and a pair of blue John Lennon specs. I looked at the whole
I remember that look. Yeah, I've got a few old photos.
Going to absolutely break the mold, and you proceeded to do just that with some of the best music of the last 30 years.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, country music it can get into a bit of a rut where everyone wants to dress like everyone else, and everyone wants to do the same type of songs everyone else has done. Whereas, particularly Casey, she come along at a time when I think people were looking for something new. I was even surprised that it really worked like it did. When she made The Captain, that was it wasn't a particularly traditional country record, although it had some country songs on it. And the fact that she just grabbed it by the balls and went for it, you know, didn't hold back.
No.
I guess that sort of honesty shone through, and I feel a bit the same. You know, I love the tradition of country music, where it come from. The songs are about the land and bush ballads. I love them, but we can't stay in that. You know, you've got to move on, and I can see you've done that with your music. Very early on, you had a rockin' band with slide guitars and blues licks. That really struck me, actually. I thought, that's good that someone's got the balls to do that.
A bit like yourself, didn't know any better, didn't know there were rules.
Well, the thing is, music, it can't be stagnant. It's got to move. No. It's got to move on. We can't forget the traditions. And when people do, I think you can get right off the track and it ceases to become what you claim that it is. But if you keep the traditions in the background there and make sure you draw from that, anything goes, really. You can try all sorts of stuff. And I think that's what some of the young people are doing now. It's a pretty healthy situation, really.
The thing I love most about what a lot of the younger artists are doing is they're stripping shit back. They're taking stuff away and getting back to the song, and they're getting back to some really soulful performances. And I just, again, with watching these young people the other day, I'm going, they're doing really good stuff here. And if they're taking on a cover, the young guy who won it, he and his brother, he's 14, plays alto sax. Amazing. His brother's a hell of an acoustic guitar player. And he took on Freddie Mercury's Need Somebody to Love Me. I'm going, this has got to be a disaster, because there's no way that kid can have an emotional connection to that song. Not only that, it's one of the trickiest vocals, and he nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. I'm going, you little bastard. It's fantastic.
Wow. So, look, I agree. The kids today, the songwriting's taken a lot more serious now than when we were young. Everyone's trying songs, and not everyone is a songwriter, but there's some great songwriters out there.
Totally. Did you get your first, can you remember what your first guitar was? Because you played so many now, and did you have one in that environment, or?
Yeah, my mum started learning guitar when I was 10, and she gave it up fairly quickly, but I inherited her old guitar. I've still got it. It's an old F-hole, like an arch top. It's half fallen to bits and everything, but I've still got it. I value it so much.
Yeah, beautiful. And what was the first song that you heard? I mean, because you've already illustrated that it was an environment with a lot of music in it. But was there anything that you heard that you've gone, that I want to do that with my life, you know?
There were two things that struck me when I was 4 years old. I know I was 4 because I remember the house we were in before I went to school. When I was school age, we moved to a little town called Millicent near Mount Gambier. Oh, really? Well, that's where I went to school, and my kids went to school there. And but I remember at 4 years old, we had an old wind-up gramophone, an old 78 gramophone. And 2 records that my mum and dad had. One was the Carter Family singing Sailor Boy. It's on Spotify now. You can listen to it, and it's so old. But it was the Carter Family singing Sailor Boy, which I thought was the most beautiful, mournful, sad thing I'd ever heard. But at the same time, I can remember listening to Ray Charles singing You Don't Know Me. And I thought, man, that guy can sing. I don't know why I thought that. At 4 years old, to hear Ray Charles and think, how can you sing like that? And he was one of the greatest singers on the planet.
You know, at the end of the day, you go back to question 2, spiritual connection. It gets you somewhere that you can't really articulate. It just works for you, you know? Yeah. So things like that you never forget. And I'm still inspired by those things. The Carter Family, that mournful mountain sound that they had, and then Ray Charles. I mean, God, what a legend! One of the greatest performers of all time. I got to see
yeah.
I got to see him in Manchester in the UK,
really?
and Van Morrison was his support. Avid
Wow.
fan of both. So I sat through the Van Morrison thing, slack-jawed. I think we'd drunk half a bottle of vodka before we got there, so it was in a great space to watch. You know? And when Ray came out, he was actually assisted out by a bloke either side, and he was a little guy. He was little, he was old, and he had a bloke under each other, not carrying him by any stretch of the imagination, just making sure he was comfortable.
Yeah.
He sat down at that piano and just doubled in size and stature, just the pure charisma. And you couldn't look anywhere but at that point of the stage. There were 7 other players on the stage, but from the moment he started playing and singing, it just took you straight through the centre.
What a
just
legend.
incredible.
I never saw him live, but wow. Amazing.
And that's the other thing about your life, which I love. You've managed to adapt to it. There's no bigger chasm of difference or quantum leap from a beach in an isolated fishing village or the Nullabor Plain to New York or Nashville, and I love the fact that you always come back from those trips going, that was really interesting, rather than going bloody hell, it shows a real breadth of character to just take all that stuff in your stride. It has been an incredible journey.
It has. Well, when you're young, nothing worries you, I mean, I can't believe now, looking back, that I moved to the Nullabor, which is just government crown land. It was very free out there. There wasn't even any properties out where we were. We were hunting foxes on crown land, and there were thousands of miles of nothing. And I took my family out there when Casey was 3 weeks old. I can't believe I did that. I mean, I can't believe we survived. It's crazy, but we lived out there. We were happy. We were living off the land. We were eating rabbit stew, kangaroo tail soup, and occasionally, when it rained, we'd hunt ducks. We actually we had a good life there. And my wife Diane taught the kids their schooling, and even though they never had a conventional schooling, they've done okay. They've survived.
Mate,
Nash is in Nashville at the moment. He's got a little studio over there, and Casey's done all right.
Two super smart kids. I love talking to both of them. They just couldn't lie if they tried, which is about the greatest compliment you can pay. Always such a pleasure, Bill. I really enjoy you coming, mate.
Take it easy.
Bill, thank you so much, mate. It's always absolutely a pleasure spending time with you. And that's it for this episode of Down on the Farm. A big thank you to our major sponsors, Aussie Legends Hemp, Stylish Outback Clothing, and the Granite Belt Brewery. See you again in 2 weeks' time. Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the big red button, Punctured Media's YouTube channel. And I'll see you in a fortnight's time for the next episode of Down on the Farm.
And I got my education down